passing the SIE and then the Series 7 exams can be a really great way to start off your financial career. But it's not always clear on exactly what jobs you're required to have these two licenses for, or what types of jobs you can get into if you do pass these exams. I passed the Series 7 about 5 years ago when I started working in wealth management, and I work indirectly with a lot of other people who have also passed the Series 7, be it through vendors or other businesses that we work with. So here are the top career paths for those people who want to pursue or have already passed the Series 7 exam. And before I jump into them, please check out the links in the description down below. Support me on any of the third-party websites if you want to. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. Both of those things help me out. Now let's get into it. We're going to break this conversation down into two main parts. The first part is going to be what I'm going to consider to be early career types of jobs or positions. And the second part will be covering positions that a person would typically get into later on in their finance career. Starting off with the early career jobs, a really common role that a lot of people get into shortly after passing the Series 7, or they'll get into this role after passing the SIE exam so that the company will then sponsor them to take the Series 7. And that's a customer service rep for retirement plans, typically with 401ks, sometimes with 403bs. The most common employers here are going to be like Fidelity, Vanguard, T. Rowe Price. As a 401k service rep, basically you're going to be working at a center fielding calls from participants in the 401k plan who have various questions about what they can do or things they need to do with their investments. This can be a really good spot to start off in the finance industry because some of these jobs don't require the SIE or Series 7 and you're really just going to be like a call director. Then if whatever the person is calling in for needs to make a transaction, you'd have to then transfer the call to someone who has passed the Series 7 to accept that transaction. That process is just going to depend on the 401k custodian that you work at. I think typically though, they'll want you to have the Series 7 so that you could just be the one to make the trades. If someone says, hey, send me 10 grand from my 401k plan, or hey, I've changed jobs, send me the whole thing as a check, you'll be someone who can handle all those types of requests. A couple downsides to this type of position though is that number one, you're not going to be making a ton of money. And number two, you really won't get exposure to too many different types of financial concepts or types of transactions that happen in the industry because you're really going to be focused in on like 401k rebalances, 401k beneficiary updates, and 401k distributions. And that's almost all you're going to be doing. So again, it's a great early career option. It's a good way to get your foot in the door and get these exams behind you, but you're probably not going to want to try to build your retirement plan off of being a 401k service rep. Next, we're going to talk about mutual fund sales positions. And within the industry, you're usually called a wholesaler when you're in one of these positions. Earlier on, you're almost always going to be an internal wholesaler. So someone that sits at the company's corporate office at a desk supporting an external wholesaler, and that person is a traveling salesperson that goes to different RAs and financial advisors' offices trying to get them to buy into the funds that your company sells. I have a different video specifically covering all the responsibilities of a mutual fund wholesaler, but the gist of it is you're going to be doing things like making sales calls and trying to build relationships with financial advisors, inform them of new funds that your firm may have come out with, inform them of updates on existing funds that you know that they're already using. And there may be a little bit of analytical work here where advisors are asking you for certain reports or comparisons on your fund versus another company's fund and how they've done versus each other, things like that. Your day-to-day activities and your compensation is all going to be very sales and commission focused, so just know that before considering one of these roles. But I think you can learn a little bit more in doing these jobs than you would on the 401k side. The next job, I'm just going to lump a lot of different positions into one and talk about in general client service roles, which is what I started off my career doing. A client service position is going to be working for a financial advisor or wealth management office where you're handling a lot of the smaller like day-to-day tasks that have to happen in those offices for many of those firms' clients. It can be cool because you're going to get to meet a lot of the firm's clients. You're going to be working one-on-one with them, whereas like with the 401k thing, you're just going to have to field calls from people all across the whole country, and you're going to get exposure to a really broad set of financial topics, and you're going to have to become fluent in many different types of things to service all the clients of the firm. I think you can make a little bit better money doing this than the last two jobs we've talked about, but a potential downside is that you're usually going to be working for a small business. So with that, you might not have the best benefits package, and there's like different types of drama and whatever that can happen in small business offices where everyone's going to know everything about each other. Maybe working for a small business isn't the type of thing you want to be doing. It's worth mentioning here that probably the majority of people taking the Series 7 exam at some point in their careers want to become a financial advisor. And I think starting off in a client service position is the number one way to build experience and knowledge to set yourself up to be a successful financial advisor in the future. So if that's a goal of yours, I'll encourage you to search around for jobs in this client service type position at a lot of different companies to get your foot in the door. Finally, in the early career positions, we're going to be talking about paraplanners. And paraplanners are similar to the client service role I just spoke about, but in some ways they're kind of a glorified version of a client service person. This will differ a little bit from firm to firm, but typically when people use the term paraplanner, they're talking about someone in a client service position, but who also has already passed their licensing exams, so SAE 766, whatever, and they can make and solicit transactions with the firm's clients. In a paraplanner role at a family office, trust office, financial advising office, whatever, you might be someone who sits in on meetings with the clients, you're doing note-taking, sending correspondence back and forth with investors of that firm. You could be someone who's just focused on financial planning in your day-to-day activities. So for individuals and families, a paraplanner job could certainly get you into a financial planner role in the future. At this position, you're probably starting to make a little bit more money, which is certainly a plus, and you may or may not be making investment recommendations to clients at this point. And if that's something you like, then it would be something to be excited about. Okay, so now into the positions that are typically held in some of the later stages of a career. Let's just start off with the big one, the most common one for Series 7 holders, which is a financial advisor. Being a financial advisor is the single coolest job in the world. You get to be an educator, a psychologist. You get to help people take advantage of financial markets and watch their money grow. You get to coordinate someone's taxes or their estate and setting up a trust to figure out how they want their money to be used in the future, and talk with their kids and grandkids about future money that they're going to inherit and plan how they want to grow that money in the future. Of course, this is a face-to-face interactive role, so you might not want to do this job if you're someone who hates talking to people, but I have seen people who were really antisocial in their younger years and worked in the financial services industry, eventually became financial advisors and ended up being very great advisors. And they're conversational, they make great recommendations to their clients, and they invest their clients' money well. So just because you might not be interested in this job now, don't rule it out for a future career. Certainly you can make a ton of money and have great benefits as a financial advisor. A lot of advisors end up owning their own practices, so if being a small business owner is something you're interested in, this could be a great path to take. But there are also a handful of downsides to this. You might have hundreds or potentially thousands of people who really think of you when it comes to their financial security. So in years when the stock market isn't doing all that well, you're going to have a lot of unhappy clients, even though you're not the person who controls the stock market directly. So you really need to be, like I mentioned earlier, a psychologist to help these people manage their emotions and not make bad decisions when they're really worried or scared about what their future finances are going to look like. Telling them, hey, just chill out, the markets will recover, they typically do, and you're going to be okay. Let's stick to the plan that we've put together. Next might be a trust officer. This person's going to be a little bit more focused on specific investment positions and performance and analytics, and there's going to be less client interaction going on in a trust officer role. In a lot of instances, a trust officer is basically bound to the confines of an investment strategy written out in a trust. So your job is to be a fiduciary for the trustees and the future beneficiaries of this trust, and make sure that the original wishes of those who put the trust in place are being carried out with the investment decisions you're making with that money. If you're getting hired by a firm to be a trust officer, typically that firm is dealing more with like high net worth individuals and has a lot more assets under management. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case, but it's just not all that common to see someone as a trust officer in a small town mom and pop advisory practice. So you're probably more focused on specific investment decisions, and you're probably managing more money than a traditional financial advisor would be. And finally, we'll talk about institutional broker positions. These would be someone who works at like a muni bond trading desk or maybe a commodities trading desk that is responsible for brokering products and securities for some of the other parties that I mentioned, advisors and trust officers. One example is going to be like a commodities futures dealer. Say there are a bunch of hedge funds on Wall Street that want to get into silver futures. In some cases, depending on the deal size, they're going to have to go through a commodities broker to be able to invest their investor dollars into exactly the places that they want. To give you another example, I was an intern for an RIA firm, registered investment advisory firm, when I was in college. A lot of their clients wanted to invest in municipal bonds, so what they did was call a municipal bond dealer that was in the state that they operated in, and this dealer would tell them, hey, here's the hot issues available in this state today. So in that type of a position, you're going to be really focused in on one specific type of investment. You're certainly going to need to be an expert in that very specific type of investment, but this could be a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it. You're not going to have all that much to do in the broader financial industry. There's just not that much depth to this type of a role. But it could be cool to you because you're really going to get a look into some of the inner workings of the financial markets. Some people would phrase this as being closer to the markets, and that's a thing that you'll hear for people looking for time to time. Again, this is a Series 7 type job, and you end up working with financial advisors, RIAs, trust officers, people like that. If you've gotten to this point in the video, I very much appreciate that. You know that the YouTube algorithm loves the long watch times in terms of total minutes or just a percentage of this video. I mentioned it earlier, but if you haven't already, please subscribe and like this one. Both of those things help me out, and I appreciate them. As always, thanks for watching.